Hi everyone, this is Justin with theactionreport.com. We're here for the first TAR video podcast. I'm joined by Mr. Mark Griffin, CEO of CueSports International. How you doing, man?
I'm alive and kicking. You know, you get my age, that's a good thing.
Basically, what the plan for this podcast is just to talk about what's going on in the pool world, what we have coming up here on the Action Report, and hopefully get in some interesting guests. Players, cue makers, just anybody that we think would have an interesting story to tell or people would like to see. So, without any further ado, we'll just go ahead and kind of kick off. We had few topics that we were going to start with, and then once we get rolling a little bit, we'll kind of keep an eye on the chat room and see, what people are thinking. But we'll go ahead and start off with the match we got coming up here December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Earl Strickland versus Shane Van Boening playing 9-ball right here in the TAR studio. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's going to be kind of interesting.
Your brother Earl came through last time.
Yeah, he did. Earl's an interesting character, and he's just so emotional and everything that sometimes it gets in his own way. But you can't argue his talents. I mean, just yesterday he played, or day before, a couple days ago, he played a little exhibition with Jose Perica, who's no slouch. But he only gets to 5 in a race to 11. Earl just beats him up. He's got some power. Of course, Shane also has some power. So, I don't know. You really have to pick Shane if you really look at the numbers and everything. But Earl can be surprising. And it'll be interesting playing 9-ball. So, and with the magic rack, everybody says the wing ball's there, and we'll just see how it happens. I'm not even sure. Are they racking on the spot? Are they racking forward? Aren't they breaking from the box, I believe?
Yeah, from the box. The one thing that they still have to figure out is where they're going to rack the balls.
Yeah, there's been some discussion on that.
Ever since the beginning, they just decided they were going to wait until they got here.
That's fine.
Yeah,
and to refresh everybody's memory,
what I mean by that is they're going to rack. They don't know if they're going to rack the 1-ball on the spot or the 9-ball on the spot.
Right. And as I was going to say before you rudely interrupted me, which you're too big to argue with, these are 4 1/8 inch pockets. Yeah. That changes things. Although Shane really put on a show last time, a couple of times, and it just shows once you get used to that type of equipment, the horse is going to run. So Absolutely. It'll be interesting. I just love to see the formats. They're real matches. They're not gamesmanship or exhibition. So it means something, and I think it's a great deal for us. I think it's a great deal for everybody. And it gives the chance for the players to make a couple of bucks because it's tough out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
The thing that I did an interview with Shane at the U.S. Open, and it's interesting. I'll get that out. I'm working on putting something together, a promo video for TAR 22. But he said something interesting. I'll go ahead and reveal it here. I asked him how big of a package did he think would be ran during the set. And he really surprised me with his answer. He told me he thought the highest package would be a 3-pack, 3 racks.
Playing 9-ball.
Playing 9-ball. Same table.
Same guy that put a 7
Same guy
playing
that ran
10 ball.
7. Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with him.
And he said he thinks the break will be different because depending on where they rack the balls.
True.
And to me, that's kind of a subtext. I asked Earl this as well. I said, with, the 9-ball, the magic rack, that ball's dead wired into the corner if you rack it with a magic rack with the 1-ball on the spot. And to me, if everybody's making the ball, then it's a run-out festival. And Earl can run out with the best players in the world.
Yeah,
if you take, everybody says when they play Shane, they want to neutralize the break.
Well, so equalize the break instead of neutralize it.
Exactly.
Same thing. Means the same thing.
So to me, it's a matter of, that's a question that can be talked about. But I really think that, what happens if somebody makes, perfect example, Donnie Mills, when Shane played Donnie.
Yeah, what, 87 out of 88 breaks?
Yeah.
He hung one. That's the only one he missed.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah.
Unbelievable is what it was.
And the thing
Shane should have lost that match.
Absolutely should have.
Yeah.
And you ask Donnie, and he'll tell you he shit all over himself.
Yeah,
I
got
mean,
weak.
Just absolutely.
Yeah.
And Shane got strong at the end.
Well, he also gave up soft breaking. He just whacked him at the end.
Exactly.
Went back to his old standard because he just couldn't play that game. So at least he had the moxie to adjust his game.
Yeah.
And it saved him. So
it. And I know Shane's looking forward to playing this game. He. I'll get the video out early next week, and you'll see what I'm talking about. He's really looking forward to this, and so are we. And one of the things I just put out on Twitter that I said we would talk about here is that we would announce who our commentators are going to be for TAR 22. And I am super excited to announce we've got one guy we've worked with a bunch before, and then we got a new guy, and Ken Schuma's going to be coming back to do TAR 22, and then we're bringing in one of my no-shit favorite commentators, and you've heard him on
lots of stuff.
WPA events, I mean, world stuff. He's going to be at the Moscone Cup. He's doing a Moscone Cup commentary, and he's also involved with AZ Billiards, and that's Mr. Jerry Forsyth.
Yeah.
And Jerry's going to come out, and he's coming out early before the Moscone Cup, and he's going to do the Shane and Earl match.
Aren't we glad that people can commentate better than they can play?
Yeah.
And that's aimed right at Mr. Jerry. I love him dearly. So, but you know, I don't want to spend all this short hour on talking about TAR 22 either. But you know, I just think it's a kind of a neat thing we're doing, and I know I hear comments, how come Shane, it's always the Shane show. And I'm going to say one thing, the guy will step up and play anybody. I mean, you told me, he'll play anybody in the world, race to 100 or similar, 10 ball.
That's something else that we're going to put out too, is I talked to Shane about it. And
it's unbelievable. He has the balls to go play. And everybody else says, well, why this, why? Just, I know you work your butt off trying to get these together. And nobody will match up. They always come up with stipulations to make it tough. And everybody says Earl's tough to get along with. He's not. He just wants what he considers fair. And Shane's man enough to work with Earl and make it happen. So
well, Shane's, I mean, he's played some tough games, man. He went down. I didn't see anybody waiting to go play Donnie Mills in Florida after Shane outran the nuts. You know, that game was, Shane went there. He went and played Mika Eminen in New York City and Amsterdam in his homeroom.
Hurt him.
Yeah, but I mean, Mika's, that's. I didn't see anybody else running in there to take a shot at Mika.
Nope.
I mean, it's the kid will he'll get up there.
Talk
and play.
is cheap. Yeah. It always evolves around that. But you got to have a little bantering to make something happen. So.
But something else, just a little teaser. We got TAR 23 locked down. It will be going off not long after TAR 22. And for all you non-Shaniacs out there, Shane will not be a part of TAR 23. So we're going to announce next week what TAR 23 is, Thursday on the TAR podcast. We'll let everybody know who, what, when, and where on TAR 23. Let
me just chime in just for a touch. This is real loose, informal, so I can say whatever I want to say, I guess. I think this concept of a broadcasting, iPod, whatever you call this, podcast, is a great concept because the pool world changes so fast. The only source of really any news is a couple of the websites, AZ, that's the main one, AZ Billiards, because by the time the print people get it, it's ancient history. And it may not even be accurate anymore. So this type of format is desperately needed in this industry. So I'm happy to be a part of it, and I'll be available as much as I can and give the Griffin twist on everything, which would probably be the death of me. So, as a friend of mine says, you jump through enough hoops, and the last one's going to strangle you. It's a noose. So, I don't know.
The idea for the podcast is something that's been, a lot of people have been. If you look around other industries, they've been doing them forever.
I think it'd be standard.
But actually, I was talking to Joe Rogan was in town this past weekend, and I've talked to him off and on, and he started a podcast a few. I don't know if it's been 2 years yet, maybe a year, but he was telling me, about how interesting it was, the community that he's been able to build, and that, for him, it's a tool that he can let people know, what's going on if he's got a show somewhere or he's going, something like that.
His is not regularly scheduled, though. Aren't his?
No, he pretty much does his, but he does a lot of them.
Oh, okay.
Like he'll pop up, sometimes 2-3 times a week.
Oh, okay.
But, it's a different thing, but the ability to time shift and to watch it whenever you want to watch it, and, and the interactivity is cool too.
You're trying to do one a week, though, at a set time.
Absolutely.
Basically, this time every week. And, please let Justin know if this time is adequate for you, because, we're trying to juggle 4 time slots, Pacific, or 3, I guess, Pacific to Eastern, and see if it meets everybody's time availability. So,
something else we should probably talk about is something I'm real excited about, and that is moving the bar table championship.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. And it's starting to come together. We're moving. It's been at the Sands location for, 17 years, I think it is. And, they've been fair to us, but we just outgrew the property. We're moving it to the Grand Sierra. That place has had a few names over the years. I was at it 25 years ago, and it was the Hilton. But it's the same location where the IPT played. We have 40,000 square feet.
Go ahead.
40,000 now versus, I think we had 8,000 before. So
I got to go make an adjustment on this audio.
Okay.
You can go ahead and keep
yeah,
talking.
so we're bringing in 40 bar tables, and on top of that, we're bringing in 16 9-foot diamonds, because we're going to have the World PPA. It's Bob Bolio's league out of the Northern California, is going to have a new event. It's going to be their first Reno tournament. They have 800 to 1,000, 1,200 members, all in Northern California, and hopefully they'll trek on over. It's being reasonably affordable. It's a $110 entry fee, and basically he's going to try and pay everybody. It's the total fees are $35, and that's green fees and registration fees and everything. And they have a handicap system. Anybody can walk in and they'll rate you on the spot, so anybody can play. And we're going to make it so the people that are playing in the bar table events can also play in his event. Now, he's only going to be there, the World PPA is only going to be there when our 8-ball is going on, which is a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You can go to our websites and get the flyer and register. Everything's online registering now, so that's working out real well at the event. And it's a 25,500 added, or 25,250 added, just like it was the last couple of years. We have men's and women's, 8-ball, 9-ball, 10-ball. And it's usually a pretty good event. In addition, since we're going to have 16 9-foot tables, and Bolio's World PPA group is only using them on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're going to try and come up with an event that is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I'm open to input on this, so please feel free to you can email me at markg at Play CSI Pool, or call our office, or I'm easy to find. We're leaning at this point to having a one-pocket tournament. We don't have a lot of money available for high added money. It won't make any money for anybody. Maybe a $100 entry fee, race to 4 one-pocket, limited to 32 or maybe 48 players. Like I say, we have 16 tables available for 4 days. So I'm open to suggestions. Just one pocket's pretty big in that part of the world. I love one pocket. See, to me, it's the best game. And it'll be, you have the Derby City, so we'll have the Derby City one. Then we can have this one in Reno, and then we have our U.S. Open one pocket in May at our event. This year it's in May.
So you're back to the one pocket? I mean, I like that idea. I
because
think it's a good idea.
We can't have, first of all, we can't do a 9-ball, 10-ball big O table event that has anything to do with BCA points, because the same time frame we are is when the World 8-ball WPA is going on, and that's a no-no. You can't schedule a points event on top of a World Championship.
Right.
As you might remember, that's what happened Desert Classic 2-3 years ago in Arizona.
Right.
So we're open to suggestions. So please holler soon and holler loud, because we have to make some plans. We can't just whip it out there the last 2 seconds.
So there you go. If you got an idea for a big table tournament,
February 12th to 19th is the total event, but for this thing here, it'll be a Monday through Thursday, so it has to be a little unique.
So you have Monday through Thursday, 16 9-foot tables?
16 9-foot. We can run through a lot of people.
Yeah.
We could also use a tournament. We could have second chance tournaments. We could have people who are knocked out can try another one. We can have minis, because with 16 tables, we probably can't even keep them all going.
Right.
I mean, so we could have one pocket tournament. If you're not in that, you play in a 9-ball mini. Who knows? We can have some fun. And it's going to be cheap and affordable. And the room rates, check this out, $39, and 49 during the weekends. And this is a 4-star hotel, 20 restaurants, show clubs, 50-lane bowling alley. They've waived all resort fees. It's not a 5-star, but it's a pretty skookum place.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. So,
for those of you who don't
cool.
speak Alaskan, I will translate. Skookum is from the ancient Alaskan, and it translates
back when I was a
to
childhood.
Cool.
So, yeah, real cool. And then, we have the Swanee tournament coming up, too.
Yep, in L.A.
In L.A., same day as...
Hard times again?
Hard times again. Same day as the Super Bowl, but that's because we didn't know when the Super Bowl was going to be, because they weren't even sure if they were going to play, and it just works best for us. And it only affects the top 48 players, and they have big screen TVs, so what's the difference?
Yep.
And that's shut off at 192 players, and that's a pretty tricky event. 192 players, 9-foot tables, 2-day event.
That's crazy is what it is.
You come to play.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get into why do you hate the ABP, Mark? Why are you always banging on the ABP?
I really don't hate anybody. I try to get along with everybody, but I really don't like some of the things that some of the people do.
Yeah.
And everybody accused me of not liking Charlie Williams. I will debate anybody on some of the things Charlie does, but I don't dislike Charlie. I know I got involved in some threads on AZ on why the 14-1 world tournament is not a world championship.
Well,
and that's neither here nor there.
Well, we agree on that.
Yeah. But the ABP, a typical situation, I don't disagree that the players should have an organization. But we've been down this road before with the UPA back in 2002, 3, 4, whatever it was. And all they did was use it as a club to beat all the other promoters into submission. And as anybody that's been paying attention knows that ABP put out a press release here about a month ago, put it on AZ Billiards. Now they put up one press release and never made another response, never answered another question. And if you really read these requirements, it puts them in an impossible situation. For instance, I have a BCA points event. They say I have to play by their rules. Well, if I play by their rules, I can't have a BCA point event. Who wrote this stuff?
Yeah.
It says written by the professionals and with discussions with the industry leaders. Nobody talked to me. Nobody talked to Zuglin. Nobody talked to anybody.
Yeah.
They just do their own little thing. That's fine, but be prepared to take the consequences.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but this industry is fractured, it's hurting, it's in trouble. Everybody has to work together. I just don't see it happening. I really don't. And getting the real simple thing, the ABP really, I think, was a couple of reasons why it was formed, to flex their muscles and, in theory, to get Barry Berman in line. As I understand, Barry Berman paid. So now is there really a necessity for the ABP?
Well, I think what it was it was just a matter of, that was the issue that everyone would get behind. Nobody thinks the players shouldn't be paid. So everybody can get behind that.
Well, it's a real simple one.
And the thing that gets me is, it's the same. What's the definition of insanity? Is when you do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result.
Yep.
Does anybody remember the UPA when it started?
I do. That's just when I was getting into it.
And it was just, and the thing of it is, and here's my biggest problem with the ABP. I talked to Johnny Archer face to face at the U.S. Open, and I'll sit down and I'll talk to anybody gladly. But as an outsider, this is what gets me about the ABP. Number one, you've got a promoter who is a board member of the Players Organization in Charlie Williams. And then you have the president of that Players Organization basically working for or signed with that promoter.
There's more conflict than you shake a stick at. The whole organization is conflicted. But this industry is conflicted because they're so small.
But my thing is this, is it's just a matter of, I guess all I'm asking for, to me, it should be some fair play. And the other thing is this, if they'll stand up and say, well, yeah, this is the way we do it, and we don't give a shit about what anybody thinks. then I can get behind that. That's fine. But it's just the whole thing where they throw it up, and we're this professional organization, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. But then you peel back a couple of layers, and it's like, it's the goofiest shit in the world.
Well, they're not professional. They haven't acted professional at all. They've had the opportunities. I mean, I even offered to intercede on this Barry Berman, whatever. They wouldn't even respond for 3 weeks. And that's fine. All you just say, no, we don't need your help. That's fine, too. It doesn't make any difference. I just think I could have. It did not have to go the way it went. I mean, they basically just called. I mean, I think they went too far with the way they handled this whole boycott thing. Because again, this is UPA. If all you can bring is an offer of a boycott and our players might support your this is that, that's not good enough. I mean, I'm a promoter. The only reason I do professional events is because I like them. I run amateur leagues. I would be far, far better off forgetting the pros and putting in 40 more bar tables. Absolutely. It's one of the main reasons why we had to leave the Riviera, because we were out of space. And these pros, I mean, last year, and this is the one I can't get over, last year we're running our U.S. Open 10 ball. We have already done the draw. It's 2 hours or an hour and a half before our players' meeting, and I get a text from a high-up ABP official, one of the top 3, he's also on the Moscone Cup, saying, you need to tell me why this is not a seeded event. There's a lot riding on this. And he made reference to the Moscone Cup. Well, they've been signing up for that tournament for 6 months. I think the time to say something is, you had 6 months. Don't wait an hour and a half beforehand. And please, somebody tell me how I can seed an event that's got international players. Same thing with the ABP thing. They say you will seed by ABP points. Okay, what are the ABP points? Which, and I won't recognize them.
Well, the other thing
Zuglin's not, I don't know who's going to recognize them.
By the ABP points, the BCA won't let you have a points event.
Well, I know, it's all cockamania. They make these statements without understanding. It's like you building a diesel car and saying you have to run on gas. Well, you're going to burn your car up. That's what's going to happen. Yeah. And I just, it can't work that way. People can't do ultimatums. You have to have some free choice here. Here's my rules. You can play or not play. So I don't know. We're still planning on having our U.S. Open 10 ball. It's been a great event. Not a moneymaker. Don't anybody thinks that we make money on it? Please come down and volunteer. It's brutal. It's just brutal. Yeah. And we have 7,000 amateurs. But the best you can do, and you can check with Alan Hopkins or anybody else, the best you can do is break even. Yeah. But that's good enough for me because we do amateur events. But I love pool. And we've got
it really adds something to the national.
I think it does. It does for our level of players. Yeah. The other leagues and the APA and the TAP and a lot of those, they're not quite as astute of a player, and they don't appreciate it as much as we do.
Have you heard? Do you think? Speaking of not, and to me that was kind of the funny place where the ABP was coming at, because everybody can get behind the players getting paid. There's no question about that. Yeah. The heavy-handedness. And the other thing, too, is I think another thing that really kind of pissed me off more than anything else with the ABP during that whole thing was a lot of players I talked to, some prominent players whose names were attached to that list about we're doing this, we're boycotting, we're doing that.
Didn't even know their name.
No idea what was going on.
Well,
and to me,
that rings true of one person that's involved in this.
Well, Charlie's a killer at that.
He does it all the time.
He's been doing it for 20 years.
You go and you see his posters.
Not 20 years, maybe 10 years.
You see his posters on who's going to be at an event, and they don't even show up. Right. You go through the names of who's signed up, they're not signed up. Yeah. Our philosophy, and I think it's the right one, is you're not in that tournament until you've paid. Yeah. I'm not going to put that you guys are in this tournament until I have your money and you're paid, because I'm not going to mislead anybody. It's just a different way of doing business. I think that he's a better promoter than I am.
He's a hell of a promoter.
I think I'm more ethical than him. That's all. It's that simple.
Well, Charlie's always. You got to give the guy credit. He's been able to put some events together, and he knows how. He knows how to get the right people on board, whether or not they stay there for very long. Tends to have a checkered past, but.
I know this is a terrible thing for a guy that just turned 65, but I'm in this for the long haul. Yeah. I'm not sure how long that's going to be. But I'm building some things in the future. I'm looking out another 5, 10, 15 years. We're in the middle of doing some things that can really make a difference. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth because it's just too iffy. But if it does happen, it will involve some international play, and it will involve funding for American players to go to these events. So, because the American pool playing professional is getting left in the dirt. I mean,
by the international players,
just by the
sure.
world just drawn up around us.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's embarrassing.
Well, when when only one or two guys,
the math is against you.
Yeah.
And there's really, how many of these pool players that American, quote, American professional pool players, which is almost it's like finding a good plumber, how many American pool players, professional, really work at their game? Most of them are weekend warriors. They'll just go, Shane really works at his game. But I will bet you, and I'm nothing against Johnny Archer, but I bet you Shane practices 5 times more than Archer does.
Yeah,
maybe more.
I had this conversation with John Schmidt, and it comes up with Shane. And Schmidt's point was a valid one. He said, Shane right now, still young. He's still pretty new at this. He still loves it.
Yeah,
and
it's not a job yet.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing of it is, Schmidt says, let him get about another 5 or 6 years and get an old lady and get a house.
I was going to say, get some bills and family, and things change.
Right.
And I will agree with that. And it's just unfortunate that the American pool player work ethic isn't as solid as it should be. But they're paying the price. They're not the best in the world.
Well, to me, the whole international scene, if you look at it from a dollars and cents point of view, it's really dumb to do. Unless you're getting 100% support like Shane does. The only people that I know that really go, I like to see people go give it a shot, like Hunter went and took a shot.
He's really blossomed in the last year.
Yeah, it's always good to see guys come up and take that shot and try to push through. But if you're looking at it strictly as a business decision, as a player, and to me, that's that's one thing I think more players should do, is look at themselves as a business, as in, this, should I do this? Should I not do this?
Versus reward.
Right. And, it's so funny because I've seen some players say, well, I can only make $1,500 or whatever. That's no money. Well, that's fine if that's the way you feel. But it just so happens a lot of the time those are the same players that are talking about, can I borrow 100 when we're at the casino? So to me, it's just a different. Well, it's a mindset issue.
The dynamics are really different. I think it was Stu Matana, SJM on AZ Billiards, posted the average income in America is like $50,000. Whether you believe it or not, I think that's the numbers. And so if you win a tournament and first place is $20,000, you have to perform. Now, in China, the average income is $6,700. In the Philippines, the average income is $3,500. Win a $15,000 tournament in the Philippines.
Right.
You just got 5 years' salary.
Right.
That'd be like a $250,000 first place, and so the dynamics have changed. The value of money has changed, and that's partly our problem. The U.S. has that problem. It's too expensive to get across town.
Yeah.
You can't go on the road. Road will eat you up.
Yeah.
I remember a few. I actually, believe it or not, went on the road.
Uh-huh.
I didn't make any money, but I didn't lose. I didn't go totally ass broke.
Is it hard on the horses?
Yeah, But you could a hotel was $25, $18.
Yeah.
Gas was, I don't even remember, probably 60 cents a gallon.
Right.
It's just the dynamic.
Hell, you could buy the car for $28.
Yeah, just about. So things have changed, and not for the better for the pool player.
No, it's tough action.
Everything's
out
against
there,
pool
man.
players.
It is. It really is.
But again, that's why TAR has a future, and that's why we agree on some things. In fact, you're the one who's been saying to me, this is really stupid to haul in 16 pool tables and do a pool tournament with 64 players, and 4 days later everybody goes home. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Look at all the costs. And you get. It'd be okay if you got spectators, but the spectators won't support it. So why do it? We could have 2 pool tables, put them in the back of a truck, and go to Timbuktu, and you only need 20 players. You can actually pay for your gas,
right?
And the play. So it's a whole different. The dynamics are all different and feasible.
Well, that's always been my thing. So, and the thing of it is, people I think are starting to listen. They're not starting to listen. They're probably starting to figure it out on their own, or just looking at the economics of it. I know it's probably nothing from what I've said, but I mean, it doesn't take a genius. I mean, I figured it out, so you don't have to be that smart. But, you know, you look at all the stuff involved with, like, the 64-man tournament.
Yeah.
You know, first of all, somebody's got to come up with 20 grand, 25,000.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
That you can't recoup.
Well,
it's a gift.
Yeah, well, not only that, but, I mean, if you recoup it, and if you do want to recoup it, you've got to spend more money to build the infrastructure around that will allow you to recoup some of it. You got to hire people. You know, you have to promote.
Yeah. Well, the key is sponsorship. All other sports they've never really grown on their own. They get sponsorship, outside sponsorship, and somehow the pool industry has to hook some outside sponsors. But as long as we have all this fracturing and infighting, I don't think you're going to have it.
No.
You know,
well, the thing of it is, there is no money. You know, nobody in this industry. You know, and here's the thing: you go and you look around at other stuff. You know, $100,000 a year to a corporation that wants to sponsor something. You know,
can't even get their attention.
Yeah, I mean, but not only that, but my point is, you know, it's very doable. You know, I mean, you know, if you're in the right spot, okay, 100,000. You know, it's not even 10 grand a month. You know, so but the thing of it is, there's no shot at even that in pool.
Yeah.
You know, what company could I mean, not only that, and the other thing is, and this has always been my beef with a lot of people who say, well, sponsors should do it or sponsors should do that. And the thing is,
you got to it's got to be good business for
well,
the sponsor.
If the sponsor can't make more money than they spend, it's
right.
They're not going to do it.
Well, I'm going to throw two things out, and then I don't know if you want to look at your chat, see if there's any intelligent questions out there, but there might be a couple. I will say that if Kevin Trudeau had given me half of what he spent $12.5 million, we would still be playing pool for 5-6 times a year at a minimum $100,000 tournaments, guaranteed. If Larry Shaborik would give me half of the money he keeps talking that he's spending on this bonus ball thing, which the number he's throwing around is $3 million, give me $1.5 million.
Yeah.
You guys will have a professional tour, but you won't be playing bonus ball.
Right.
Probably be playing 10 ball. Or actually, the one we put a package together, and it was going to be 8 ball, 9 ball, 10 ball in one pocket. Varying disciplines, and we had a sponsor that was interested. And it just didn't pan out. And it was a liquor sponsor. But
Lenny here said something that
Lenny?
Yeah, Fast Lenny.
Oh yeah.
What's up, Lenny? But he said something that we joke, Mark and I say the same thing, Lenny, we joke about it all the time, and what Lenny said is you could own Pro Pool for $1 million.
I think you're probably just about right.
And Mark and I always joke, you know, like, hey, you know, you could buy a pool for $1 million, but then what the hell do you do with it? Yeah. I mean,
well, and
it's like going into the restaurant business. I mean, you know how you make a small fortune in the restaurant business?
Yeah, I know. You start with a big fortune. Those are old jokes, buddy.
I know.
No, and it's unfortunate. I don't know if $1 million would quite be enough in these market times. But that's what the professional players have to understand. And they have to partner with something. I have, this is like maybe a commercial for USA Pool League, but I have the thing in place. It's actually functioning. And I actually talked to Rodney Morris, Sean Putnam, and Johnny Archer at Super Billiards Expo last year and explained this is how we can make this thing work for your advantage and for ours. And when it got all done, they told a friend of mine, says, well, all he wants to do is get his league going. No, the league has to get going to support the pros. It's a built-in function, which, by the way, our pro pot, that's what I call
That's just so funny to me.
has almost $15,000 in it. We're running a league that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah, but
but we have 20 active leagues. It's the best system out there. If you want information, contact us. But it's a self-supporting system.
No, and that's the other thing. It feeds. It makes sense.
The amateurs support the pros support the amateurs. It is a perpetual machine because there's always amateurs available that want to learn. But these pros have to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And right now, they're not willing to listen. And I'll predict what will happen. If, in fact, we don't make a deal with the pros, we will be making deals with the second-tier pros. And you know what will happen? In 2 years, all the amateurs will think the second-tier pros are the pros. It's just like go out in the street, and who's the best player in the world? Black Widow.
Yeah.
Because they think she's better than all the guys. She's not. But that's what media does. And Jeanette Lee has done a hell of a job.
Yeah.
But pool needs some synergy. And Well,
here's the thing with the synergy, and I'm a little off this is where you and I kind of diverge a little bit, and me and almost everybody else.
Well, you're wrong.
Because that could be
all the time.
But that's the refrain you always hear.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to work together. Everybody needs to come together. But here's the thing, I look around the pool world, and I'm not, part of the reason we're doing this podcast is to tell the truth. And as I see it, I look around the pool world. There's a lot of people that I wouldn't
do business.
I wouldn't follow anywhere. I mean, not only that, but I wouldn't trust them, as far as I could throw
We
them.
agree on a lot of that.
So, that's where, I'm kind of the mindset that, why don't we all get along is fine. Kind of.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
But, I mean, the other thing is, when somebody screws you over, and this industry is so small, and not only that, but, part of the, there's something, in order to work in this industry, it's such a small thing. You almost got to love it. And you have to be willing to put up with, not a whole lot of money, because if you didn't love it, there's a lot of other shit you could go do.
You can work at a gas station and make more money than you do as a pool player. Yeah. But look at PBR, professional bull riders.
But my point, don't sidetrack me, man. Let me finish my point. But my point is, why can't we all work together? Sounds really good in theory, but, after you've worked in the industry for 3, 4, 5 years or 25 years, and people have screwed you over or did you dirty or whatever, it's real easy from someone who hasn't been involved in that situation, on the outside to say, why don't you guys just get along? Why don't you just work with the APA, Mark?
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys would get with the APA, one league, hell, we could support the pros. Why don't you do it? See?
Okay.
That's my point.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Yeah.
But there should be elements that we should be able to work together. Mark Griffin and CueSports International should be able to work with APA as far as promoting the game. Mm-hmm. We don't have to sit down and break bread together or go out and have a beer and be buddies. But I compare it to General Motors and Ford Motor Company work together when they're working against legislation for how many miles and safety.
Right, yeah.
But now they're fiercely competitive in the marketplace, and that's fine. I wish the APA and I could communicate. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I honestly feel that's their problem. I mean, they're the ones that's causing this position, not me. I have extended the olive branch. It just wasn't accepted, per se. And with the ABP or professional pool players, they need to support somebody that can come up with half of a solution. I'm not saying you have to get married and blow away your individuality and everything else, but you have to be willing to work with something that makes sense, or you're going to go your way, and in this particular case, I'll go my way. And
that's the paradigm of a lot of, many players I know. The paradigm is, I'm a professional pool player.
Yeah.
You put on events, I show up to them, that's your benefit.
Yeah. Well,
the benefit of putting on an event is for me to show up, And
I understand. There's a real communications disconnect, and to put one on top of that, which I kind of smirk about, but we chuckle about it. At times, it seems like I'm not really the most popular guy in pool, and I haven't quite figured that because I've done so much for pools. I've helped people I don't even know basically in pool, and they become like, well, what'd you get out of it? Well, maybe I got nothing. Oh no, you had to get something. People are so cynical and so mistrusting that. So, again, if you can't, after a couple times and you just get nowhere, I just don't even talk. I just go elsewhere. I'll find another solution. Yeah. Well, they say if you haven't run into a roadblock, you don't change. You only change direction. You don't change your destination.
Yeah, right.
And so it's just taken a whole lot longer than I thought it would.
Well, the thing of it is, I think, I think and the other thing is, at least from my point of view, is when you look at things like the ABP and they state we're speaking for these players, that's bullshit. I'm telling you right now. I mean, that's pure unadulterated bullshit. If you look at the list of players,
call them all up. Half of them will not even still know they're there. Yeah. I know, I'm totally right. And that's what's wrong. Misrepresentation. People do not understand. When you say something that's not true, every time it's proven, you lose credibility. I will say something. I've put my foot in my mouth a whole bunch of times, and if I'm wrong, I'll try to apologize, but I'm not going to tell you something that I don't know, that I don't believe is accurate. I'm not going to tell you something to make you do something when I'm just screwing with you. And I don't know if that's, maybe it's not acceptable. Maybe the truth just isn't wanted these days. Who knows? And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I am 65 years old. I don't really need to kiss anybody's butt out there. I'm doing this because I want to. Truth be known, everybody says he's making all this money. I haven't made a dime since I bought these leagues. I have invested in these leagues. We've got a tremendous software program we're going through the next version. And then it's going to be knock your socks off cool with the CTS and everything integrated.
No, what you guys have done with that tournament system is
and most
phenomenal.
people don't even know what it is because it's not finished. But I would have been better staying retired.
Yeah.
But really, I love pool. And if I hadn't saved this BCA pool league, it would be in the tank right now.
Yeah.
Because the BCA board, in their wisdom, decided they should sell the league. They were nuts. I told them then. I still tell them. I think they agree with me now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I mean,
I don't know. It's a shame. The whole thing's a mess. And there is a solution. There's always a solution, and it's not always money. So.
No, I mean, what it is now is it's just a matter of so many people, are trying to survive. I mean, talking about the players.
Yeah, that's tough.
And it's easy for us to sit here or anybody, and I don't want to seem like I'm preaching against players or anything like that. That's they're all, most of them are all my friends. That's why I got into this business, was because I love great pool. And I like most of the guys that play it, and it's just so when you like something, you want to see it do well, and then when it. I guess it's like when you see a friend make a bad decision, you're like, "Come on, man, what are you doing?"
Yeah. And pool's a disease. Yeah. It is. You get any of the old farts like me? I mean, I hit my first pool ball when I was in 5th grade, and I was just fascinated.
Yeah.
And you look at any of the guys who've been around, there was something that triggered them. Their
so
dad
that was like
pool.
right around when Lincoln got elected, right?
I think so. Yeah, I remember it well. And it's pretty amazing that pool is that type of game that it's a lifelong. Really, you can play it as long as you can see. Basically, I'd say you can play it. Right. In your case, maybe you don't need to see it. But I don't know. And I'm an optimist, and I really think better times are coming.
Well, I hope so. I mean,
but you got to help me.
Well, one thing that I've kind of, you look at other industries, and it's going to take one or two things in order, I think, for things to change. Because, I don't think we're going to see the angel investor like a Trudeau with money who's going to stick. I don't think you're going to see somebody come in and put $10 million in the game over 5 years.
I don't either.
I don't see that.
There's no reward right now.
And so,
no legs.
To me, it's a grassroots, you got to kind of bootstrap it kind of thing. And I look around at other industries that did that. The things that immediately come to my mind are, you look at skateboarding. I mean, guys would go around in Barnstorm and do tours. NASCAR.
For nothing.
NASCAR, I mean, so basically it's either going to take one of two things. It's going to take an angel investor or one or two just extremely motivated people that can convince people to follow them. Follow them. Yeah, well, which means you've either got to be one hell of a leader or a dictator. And nobody's going to follow a dictator. So somebody's got to be a leader.
Well,
and not only that, but you're talking about a tough group of people to try to lead.
Well, you got to be charismatic, and that's where I'm not. I like to work behind the scenes. I'll make it work, but I'll be accessible, but I'm not going to be a front man and run around and prance and dance for everybody. But I'll get the job done.
Well, the other thing too is when you're talking about working with, and that's the other thing is we're talking about people working with people and trying to do things with people that really are the best in the world at what they do. And
best in the U.S. Anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, best.
But they have the potential to be the best in the world.
But the thing is, when you're dealing with people at that level, I don't care what skill it is. It could be darts, it could be bowling, it could be anything. When anybody is that good at something, pick it. I don't care. You have to have some form of ego.
Otherwise, you don't get that good.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Obvious. So and that's where the problem is.
And so now you've got lots of different egos.
We talk about alphabet soup. Yeah. How many PBAs, PBTAs, PPPAs, all these professional pool players associations, half of them don't even last a year.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Players should not run the organization.
No, I agree. I mean, it's just based on history.
It's a fact. It's a proven fact. And they may get up and running for a year or two. It'll run out of gas because of the manipulations, the personalities, the backstabbing. It just doesn't work.
Well, the other thing too is, and I'm one of these guys that I see the player side of it because I'm the same way. I mean, if I'm going to take all the risk and I'm going to, put in all the work, then I'm going to look out for what's best for me. And why would I trust, somebody else to make a decision for my business?
Well,
I mean, unless there is a demonstrable upside, not some pie in the sky stuff.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of times they go for pie in the skies. But I could write you a piece of paper, say, here, sign with me, and I'll give you X and X and X. I'm not going to do that because I don't know if I can produce it.
Yeah.
But some people will. Does that mean that's the way you're supposed to go? No. Yeah. So we're kind of wandering off a little bit, and I did want to touch on bonus ball a little bit, just because some people say bonus what? But bonus ball is a new game that's being promoted by some.
A lot of people talking about that at the Open.
Well, because they're trying to get under contract I've heard two numbers, between 32 and the top 48 players. Basically, the whole APB board and everybody affiliated, which makes you question, I thought ABP was about American pool. A bonus ball is a new game. I'm not against new games, but when you come to the point where you might have to play this new game exclusive for 6 months, it could throw a real monkey wrench in the rest of the pool tour, and how do you get people to the European and the international events and all these other things.
Just to bring people up to speed, if you're not familiar, bonus ball is a game that was put together by
Larry
Shaborek, a gentleman out of Canada, and it's been kicking around for a lot of years.
Yeah, 10, 12 years.
Was it 2 years ago at the Open? He had brought down and did a kind of demonstration. And the idea behind it, I mean, the guy's got a solid idea. The execution generally is where things fall apart, but the idea is solid, and that is that you take this game, and it's a team game, and you have time limits, so you get everything that goes with that. You get, just like you do in football, time's running out. You've got to make a play, And the other thing is the team thing. So you've got the team dynamic of the team from my town or your team, and all that. It all sounds good and it makes a lot of sense. But the thing of it is, there's other things to it. It's got all the hurdles that a new game has.
Well, unique sets of balls.
Yeah.
Unique scoring. See, I think if Larry would channel his efforts in a more friendly with the conventional game or a conventional system. See, team concept is awesome because when I don't know if you remember the NACPPA, what a mouthful that was. It was supposed to have one of the Waltons from the Walmart family was supposed to be involved, and one of them, anyhow, the person died. And they were talking about having teams. They're going to buy facilities in four towns in the country, across the country, and a big enough building where you could do it. It'd be like having your own ballpark and having a professional ball team.
Sure.
Because then you're a reasonable sized fish.
Let's not get spun out about the NACPPA. Yeah. But what we're talking about with bonus ball is at the U.S. Open this year. That was what everybody was talking about. Was they were going to launch a season in 2012, and they were
March through September,
and they were locking up. A lot of players were talking about. A lot of people were saying they were in, but the deal was it was going to be a 6-month season, and these guys were going to have to play every week. So they were basically all the top players in the United States and some international players, and the money they were talking about was legit. I mean, nice money, big money.
$250,000 first place team.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the total prize fund I heard was like $1.2 million, which is. Now you start asking questions, and some of the answers don't make a lot of sense. So we'll have to see how that works out. But
and we're not sitting here bad-mouthing them. It
could be fantastic.
It could be fantastic for pool. I don't have a lot of faith in a game that requires the pool halls to change the balls and do this and do that. I just think it's a hurdle that's tough to
me,
overcome.
I mean, I see two sides of it. I've met Larry. I've never really spoken with him. But it seems to me like, what they're attempting to do is, he's attempting from the ground up to create a league. The these guys could be playing darts.
Could be playing anything.
Right. So, it just so happens it's on a pool table. I can kind of see where the game doesn't matter that much if you sell it right. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll agree with you to a degree, but if you're building a team.
Now, if you're trying to sell it to already existent pool fans, then I think he's in for a really tough road.
Yeah.
But if he can put it together and sell it right, then I think, I still think he's got to, I wouldn't bet on him, but, I think you could, maybe you could take off. But
local sports done properly can have a real good following. But when you have the Atlanta, what do they call them? What's the Atlanta Scorpions, I think, because Johnny Archer's going to be the captain.
Oh, yeah.
But they're not playing in Atlanta. They're playing everybody's playing in Las Vegas was the plan. Well, now you lose this connection with the community. I don't know if you know this. I owned the Anchorage Aces semi-professional hockey team for one day. I was in a bank. It's the craziest story you ever heard out of bankruptcy
Let me guess,
court.
you won it in a poker game from a drunk miner.
No. I was buying out of bankruptcy court, and I needed the league approval. And there was 5 leagues. There's Fresno. There was Las Vegas Rangers, where they call themselves. I wasn't even a hockey fan.
Yeah.
I love the concept because in Anchorage, it was the Anchorage Aces. Now it's the Alaska Aces. You're a big fish in a little pond.
Right. Yeah.
You are, you're like junior league baseball. I mean, you're it.
Yeah.
And that's how you build up pool.
Sure.
And pool would be the greatest thing in the world, but you have to have something. You got to have travel funds. You got to have criteria. Believe it or not, the most you could pay your whole team in the hockey team was $220,000. That's the whole team. $20,000 max per player. They're college kids.
Right.
So you get creative. You get a Chrysler dealer and he gives them a Chrysler and that kind of stuff to drive. But,
Right.
that's the concept if you want to do a team thing that pool has to do. And you don't want to be in Atlanta. You want to be in Dothan where there's nothing else going on.
Exactly.
You don't want to compete with baseball
Right.
and football. You want to compete. You want to be a big fish in a little pond. Now the press covers you. Now you're a local hero. Now you get support. But that's a long, tough way to go.
Well, yeah,
And it takes some funding.
Well, the other thing too is you look, this has devolved into the same thread and argument that always goes off on AZ about how do you fix pool or do something with pool. But my opinion is, if it's not a ground-roots thing to where grassroots, or a guy looks at it from like a 15-year plan to where we're going to go out and grind, nobody's going to do that. The other thing is, the angel investor, which I don't see on the horizon. But so to me, it's kind of like, and I've always said this, if we can't get, and I'm talking about the pro game here, because the amateur game is fine.
Actually, it is.
The amateur game is fine. It's the pro game that's, dying.
But you got to have both.
Yeah. And that's because there's a disconnect between the pros and the amateurs.
But that comes back, you got to have some youth programs. And I don't see an adequate youth program. Lee Brett had emailed a message, it was on AZ Billiards. Is the U.S. ever, or are we going to ever get a academy, they call it. But we are working on, it's a thing the BCA used to do. It was called Summer Q Camps. And with Randy Gottlicker and others, and doing in pool rooms, no charge to the kids. Well, obviously the money's got to come from somewhere, and the plan was from me. But the instructors were going to donate their time. We're going to pick places where instructors, their hometown or 50 miles away, and just try to do this thing because, you feed a little bit of water to a kid, and boy, he drinks it up fast. And come on, Jesse Ingles, he's 18 years old. In 3 years, he went from nothing to a hero. And that's what kids can do when you nourish them. And we're really, I'm really gung ho about that. And one of the foreign countries we're dealing with.
The other side of it, though, is, if I had a kid,
you wouldn't want him in pool. I would, because
why?
One of the main reasons why I played pool, because I was never
No. I wouldn't have a problem with the kid playing pool, and I wouldn't have a problem with the kid
being good at it. But you're talking professional.
Yeah. And to me, that's the thing. Now I understand what you're saying about with a junior program, it spreads the game, and it
I'm not asking them to be professional, but someone will let you be professional.
That's my thing. Is like, because some people, you say that's the track is, you have a junior program so you can breed pros so they can go represent the country.
Yeah,
and to me, that's the whole point.
That's what the foreign countries are doing.
That's
and they're
what
doing
they're
it
doing.
well.
Yeah, well, but that's the reasoning behind why you have a junior program.
Well, they also get Olympic funding. It all comes. It's all that big circle. We don't have that in our country. But the reason I think pool is such a great game because it teaches you individual skills. Yeah. You know, it's hard to teach you or somebody else to shoot the case 8 ball. That's a tough shot when it's the first time. You're like this. Yeah. It teaches you maturity. You know, I wasn't ever a big basketball or football player. I'd get run over and get hurt. So I played the chicken game.
Pool forever.
You know, and pool is just the neatest game in the world because you have to stand up. You have to have some confidence. So,
we really got sidetracked with the bonus ball shit.
Well, we'll be back next week. Somebody will.
It'll be interesting to see how that works out. If they put it all together and it all...
More power to them if they can make it happen. And I'm not trying to badmouth anybody here. I'm trying to let's get some education out. There's always misinformation. Let's get some real information. And my attitude is, if I offend somebody and they disagree with me, you call Justin. I'm available. Just pop your butt over here and we'll talk about it. I don't really care who you are, because I really think most of my principles and concepts are logic based. I don't have a lot of emotion on that sort of stuff.
Before we get out of here, does anybody have any questions about anything we've talked about or anything we got going on, or if you got a question for Mark, let us know. What else we got coming up? We're going to do this every week, Thursday. We're going to try and keep it short. We don't want it turning into, we're not going to shut it off at exactly 60 minutes, but we don't want it delving into some, because this guy could blow smoke for days.
Yeah, well. That's the way it is. You get old, you got to start talking to somebody, even yourself. I just think it's a great concept. I think that the industry needs it. Every other industry probably has similar things. I've heard they have. Everybody thinks.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Or you just want to ramble?
I was just trying to make it so you didn't have dead space.
What's your opinion on pool in the Olympics?
It'll never happen. So you're whistling Dixie. I don't know the year, but I believe it's 2016's agenda or whatever has already been voted on and discussed. So the first time it can even be considered is for the 2020 Olympics. And you really want pool to be like basketball where Jordan and everybody's playing for the team? That's not, Olympics is supposed to be amateur. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of goofy. And there's just no standards yet. I mean, what are they going to play? What game? Straight pool, snooker, billiards, pool, 9-ball, 8-ball? Right. One pocket, what are you going to do? So, I wish there was a method in the U.S. to get Olympic sponsorship, though. But that's our structure. The U.S. isn't structured like that. And it's not pool's fault. It's U.S. government's fault.
How about a game that can't be fixed and the casinos will book? Well, I'll tell you what, you're on to that, man.
I totally agree.
You're exactly right. If it's, and you don't... It's easy to dive down into that mud hole, but yeah, it's just one more shitty chapter in the history of pro pool.
Well, that's one of the problems with one-on-one matches too. If you're doing a tournament venue, and you can do it pari-mutuel style, and the casino cannot get hurt. In other words, there's 8 horses, real live horses, or there's 8 pool players, same concept, but the money in the pool comes from the odds placed on the bets. It's the money's not coming from the casino. You're betting against the money that's everybody bets in.
Sure,
the casino takes 10 or 15% off the top.
Well, pari-mutuel's doable.
Yes. I really think there's making progress. Harry Plattis has got something that's being accepted. There's getting to be phone apps for betting. I'm expecting in 5 years you will be able to bet on pool if you have a presentable pool organization or somebody doing it.
Right.
You're not going to bet on Earl and Shane playing.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Why not? All these guys do.
Well, that's true. And in all honesty, with those two, you could bet. Because if there's nobody that's going to ever dump, it's Earl and Shane. Yeah. And I admire them for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you go back in the history of 20 years ago, what you're referring to. Yeah. Earl's the one that told him
Earl's the one that said, I'm not in. Yeah.
That's right.
So, and that's something else I think a lot of Earl haters, don't get me wrong, I've gotten hot enough at Earl. I mean.
Yeah, but there's not a crooked bone in his body.
Yeah. But
and he's passionate.
Yeah.
And it was funny because there were some threads. If you got another question, holler. But other than that, I'll ramble for 2 seconds. There's a thread on AZ about the captain of Mosconi Cup.
Right.
I think Earl would be awesome
Yeah,
as the
so
captain.
would I. Have him out there running every
He's
morning.
so emotional. He'll get him pumped up.
We got a question here. Why do the pros from Black High Grove, why do the pros seem to love this game? Bonus ball, is it really that good? Well, I could give you a diplomatic answer, or I could tell you the truth. And the truth is,
I don't know Black High Grove.
I don't either. But the truth is, if somebody could offer you an opportunity to make more money than you do now, chances are you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, like any normal, smart human being would. And I think that, I know what I've heard a lot of players say to me privately about the game, and it's the reviews are mixed. Actually, they're not mixed at all. They're all pretty much the same, but, it's just they're supposed to say it's a good game.
Yeah, the game is tough to understand. I don't even understand the game. I've had it explained to me. I've watched it. The rules have changed. I think the rules still need to go through a couple more evolutions to make them understandable. I don't think it's rated for prime time, but, it's,
well, one-on-one boxers versus one-on-one pool players. Well, see, here's the difference, and this is something that delves right to the heart of the action report, and it's something I've been asking myself for a long time, and I actually asked some people on AZ about it, but it goes back to boxing, UFC, any of these individual sports. These guys are playing for a purse. At the UFC, especially on the lower levels, they like some of the guys that the prelims that aren't on TV and stuff. Some of these guys are fighting for $4,000 to show up and $4,000 to win. And these guys are training
months.
hard their whole life.
Yeah.
They train
it's
hard.
It's a passion sport too.
Yeah, it is. But and so the dichotomy. Yeah, there's not a lot of money in pool, but not a lot of money in a lot of sports. You know what I mean? Especially at the bottom. Now, when you get to the top level of something, yeah, generally there's more money. But anyway, my point is, the organizations in boxing is just, to me, boxing is a sham. I mean, boxing is what happens when you just all you give a shit about is money. That's what happens. The boxing is what happens. Because it's a show. It's no better than wrestling, in my opinion.
Well, I'm going to disagree a little bit there. It's gone through some gyrations, and maybe you're not a Don King fan, but 20 years ago, boxing was pretty Ali days and stuff. And I'm sure there were some funny things happening, but the price of dumping a fight were severe.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
unless you were told to do it.
Yeah, but there was also organizations. You have to now your rankings and this and that.
Right.
Pool doesn't have all that. I could dump to you and nobody care tomorrow.
Right.
That's
exactly.
It's your personal pride that won't let you do it. So
right. But yeah, that's actually he answered it pretty good there. What do you think about a pool players union? That's kind of what we talked about with the ABP.
But
well, I mean, I think an organization for the pros, and I'm not Mark, but I know a little bit more about this shit than he does. A players union, organization, whatever, that would be outstanding if it was done right. And if it was, this is my opinion, the thing of it is, if a bunch of guys get together and do nothing but stand up and demand stuff, it's never going to work.
Nope. It's a two-way street. Players union is probably a better idea than a players association. There's a difference.
SJD and AZ wanted to know about the move to Rio.
Oh, that's cool. And I mean, in a nutshell,
for the Open, he said.
For the Open?
Yeah. Yes, in 10 ball.
Well, in 2013, we're going to have. In 2013, we moved to the Rio, but we're moving the dates to July. We are planning on having the U.S. Open 1 pocket, U.S. Open 10 ball, with a 10 cents worth of luck, U.S. Open straight pool championships, maybe even a U.S. Open 8 ball. And those are all on 9-foot tables. That's in conjunction with all our amateur events, too. It's a little bit, the added money can't be huge because the gate just isn't there. And it has to, but we'll get something going and maybe we can build it on to go. But we're going to be doing some professional events. The venue is 60,000 square feet bigger than the Rio, which is than the Riviera, so it's almost half again as big. It's a little funny configurations, but we'll be able to have over 300 amateur tables and 16 professional tables. We're looking forward to that. 20 restaurants. The rates are, I'm not going to discuss the rates other than say they're going to be very surprisingly reasonable. And we'll be releasing all the data and everything after our May event at the Riviera. Because if we tell it now, they get confused. Everybody, this year we're at the the Riviera as normal, in May 9 through 20. Then we'll start really talking about the Rio. But the Rio is going to be, you guys are going to really like it.
Well, that's something that I'm glad, when you're here, I wanted to talk about. And I tell people a lot, is that
these are big steps.
Big
And the
deals,
bar table,
man. Big
these
deals.
are big deals.
Yeah. In my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean.
Because the thing of it is, it's moving, it's progress. Yeah. You're moving forward. You're not just surviving.
Well, here's a little thing that most people haven't even made the connection. Who owns the Rio? Caesars. Who owns the place where Derby City is? Caesars. Who owns the place in Tunica that Diamond's going to do an event? Yeah. Caesars. Who owns the places in Atlantic City that somebody can happen someday? Yeah. Caesars. 54 locations in the United States. We're affiliated with some people that can help us and help the sport.
Yep.
So I'm excited.
Let's see, any more questions here? What have we got? Do the women have a tour this year? You want to call it that?
The women have, 2 or 3 events? That's a sad story. It is. And I saw a thread on AZ again. Why don't they bring back the ESPN Classic? Because the ratings were so low.
Yeah. Another one from Lenny. Do you think that if the APA, TAP, and other leagues supported Pro Pool like the BCAPL does, would that be the answer to saving Pro Pool, and how would it work? Now, that's an interesting thought. Now, if you had a players group or a tour and there was some incentive for more than one league operation to support it, you know what would be awesome is if you could have an APA champion, a BCAPL champion.
You mean amateur or pro?
Pro.
Or both.
Or whatever.
Yeah, but,
to me, almost like an NFL, AFL back in the day.
I'll say something that I don't want people to take this wrong.
Too late.
Yeah. If the APA did the same thing that I'm trying to do with the USA Pool League, pool's problems would be over.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They just not built that way. They want the money in their pocket rather than making the sport grow. They don't care about the professional player. And you can pick. I'm not telling you a secret. All you do is pick up the phone and ask them.
Yeah.
And that is what's wrong. If you don't have pros in time, you won't have amateur. It's like a front wheel, back wheel thing. You got to have them both. You can kid yourself and say you don't need them, and you might not for a generation or two, but pretty soon, if they don't understand how the game's really supposed to be played, there's no hero worship. And the BCA didn't see it either. That's why they sold the leagues, and they're all wrong. So, yes, and with answering Lenny's question, if we were to structure an amateur system just like the USA Pool League, we would have 200 professional pool players all making at least $25,000 a year. That's for the bottom tiers.
Question here, Double J487. How do you become a USA Pool League operator?
Call Mark Estes at our office. I don't want to go into it's very easy, very cheap, like nothing. But we're building it for the future.
Is it like an APA where a person has a territory and
it's very similar.
Can a league operator make, like I know in the BCA PL?
It's tough sometimes.
Yeah, but now USAPL. There's more opportunity for the league operator to make money?
USA Pool League is structured to make the same amount of money as approximately as an APA league operator makes. You get a protected territory. It's a license and not a franchise. That's a huge difference. If you were to get 100 teams together, you'd probably make $40,000, $50,000 a year. And everybody love you because it's controlled, it's constrained. We guarantee the prize fund. You have to send the prize fund in. You have to send teams to Vegas. It's got a lot of structure, but it also puts money into our pro pot. A good question. What, you got another interesting question?
Well, actually, we got a solution. L.J. Moss came up with the solution.
Linda J. Moss out of Florida.
Came up with
Hi, Linda.
Came up with a brilliant solution. Can't believe I didn't think of it myself. All you got to do is buy the APA.
It's not a problem.
That's it.
Tell them to email me.
Think they'll take PayPal?
Yeah. Do they want it in small unmarked bills or just one big old check? That would be an interesting.
All right, guys. I think we're going to
think,
wrap
yeah,
it up.
We're running over.
I want
Justin,
to thank Mark
thank you, man.
for
I
stopping
just-
by. I'm sure we'll see more
I want
of
to
you.
see. I want to see some feedback.
Yeah.
I want people to say, "Boy, you really were terrible. Or you were good. The good points. Why didn't you talk about this?" Give me some feedback.
Yeah.
Email you. Email me.
Well, the other thing about
you
this
know.
podcast is as soon as we wrap it up here, I'm going to start the process of uploading. I have to re-encode it, but I'll put the file on our site so anybody that wants to can download it. I've got to figure the details to make sure it's iPad, iPod compatible and all that stuff. But I'll get that done, and I'm also going to get it up on YouTube so anybody can watch it on YouTube whenever they want. So, once it's up there, if there's something that interests you, don't be afraid to link to it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And if there's something we said here that either you agree with or disagree with or pissed
Or have
you
some
off,
questions.
then
We're both
let us
really
know.
accessible.
Yeah.
I'm so accessible.
Well,
it's
I mean,
stupid.
what I was going to say was
so-
go to AZ Billiards.
Yeah.
Start a thread. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And I want to thank AZ Billiards too, Mike Howerton and Jerry. I was talking to Jerry earlier this week. I think we might get him on here right before TAR 22. And next Thursday, we're going to announce TAR 23.
All right,
So,
man.
all
That's
right.
it. Thank you much.
All right. Thank you, Jen. Have a good day, and we'll see you later.
All right.
Let me see.
Do I have to sing anything while we're going out of here?
Nope.
No more X Factor?
That's it. Peace.